Are you looking for a way to help your brick-and-mortar business drive more traffic and increase your sales? Look no further than the Receipt Paper Podcast. In this podcast, Joanne and Kyle provide their sage advice on how to make your brick-and-mortar store the hottest spot in town. Whether you're just launching a new business or trying to grow an existing one, these informative episodes will leave you inspired. In each episode, Joanne and Kyle take on a different topic related to running a successful business. They offer practical tips based on their own experience as owners of multiple brick-and-mortar locations. So whatever challenges you're facing, they have actionable advice for you. From finding a location and executing your build-out, to merchandising and customer experience, to sales and marketing, Joanne and Kyle have you covered. With helpful advice from these experienced entrepreneurs, you are sure to learn how to increase your sales and have your business running out of receipt paper in no time. Let's dive right in.
Well, hey there, Greg. Thanks for joining us today on the Receipt Paper Podcast. I am so excited to have you today. For those listening in, Greg Mohr has joined us. He is one of the Wall Street Journal's best-selling author of Real Freedom: Why Franchises Are Worth Considering and How They Can Be Used for Building Wealth. I am so excited for this topic. I know so many of you out there are looking at franchising your business or looking at investing in a franchise. So, Greg, I am excited to have your knowledge here with us today.
Joanne, it is very nice to be on your show today. I am so glad that you allowed me to do that. It is a definite pleasure.
Awesome. Well, Greg, do you want to share a little bit about yourself? I know I never do the full justice of introducing people, but why don't you just share a little bit about you and who you are?
I appreciate that, Joanna. What I do as a franchise consultant, people come to me, and getting into a franchise can be a bit confusing and a bit overwhelming when you've never looked at it before. People know they want to get into a franchise, but they don't always know what kinds of franchises are out there. You got a whole list of them. You could go for days and days clicking on all sorts of franchises and never quite figure out what's right for you. That's where I come in. You're going to invest your hard-earned money. You're going to do something like that. You need a good advisor that's going to sit down and thoughtfully listen to you, go over what you're looking to accomplish, figure out where have you been, where are you at, where do you want to be, and then go through those franchises for you, let you know what franchising is all about, and along the way, help you determine if franchising is even right for you to begin with. And if it is, then we figure out, okay, which franchise then will fit your needs and do that. And I've been doing this for about 10 years or so. I own some of my own businesses that were privately owned businesses, and I know what a struggle, owning a dry cleaners was when I was an engineer, and I didn't know anything about dry cleaning. Who knows anything about dry cleaning? We had to figure out all that on our own. So it was very nice when I got into a franchise that I actually had somebody there that had done it many, many times before and said, do you follow these procedures and processes, Greg? This is, what's going to happen on that. So that's why I enjoy doing franchising. I got into franchising back in high school. I got into Taco Bell. Everybody back in high school got into the service industry and the food service. So mine was Taco Bell, and I just happened to work for a master franchisor over there at Taco Bell, and she owned 50 Taco Bells. So that was my first foray into it. So when I left the corporate world, I said, I don't want to do the private business thing anymore. That was kind of a pain, and I don't have one great idea. So off to franchising I went.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome. I'm excited for your expertise today. I think there's so many unique areas we can dive into today, but I know for me personally, I owned a franchise for 5 years, and Kyle and I sold those businesses, and now we are looking at franchising our current business, and so many of our listeners are in similar scenarios. So why don't we just kind of start with the basics of what exactly is franchising, and why would a brick and mortar business owner consider franchising their business?
For franchising, what that does is that in the context of creating your own franchise and doing that, what that's going to do is bring you a revenue stream. So you can grow as a brick and mortar owner, a business owner. You can grow in a couple of different ways. You can grow yourself. If you grow yourself, you get all the money from every single one of the locations you build out. But you have to put your money into each one of those locations. You have to staff those locations itself. You have to oversee those operations of those on there, which is great. But that may take you a little while longer to do because you have to come up with that money and you have to put a lot of time and effort into it, which is fine for some. To go the franchising route, that's more probably, I would say, exponential growth. So now you are not the one that's putting your money into each one of those locations. You have a set of policies and procedures already in place, and we have people that can help you do all that. You don't need to necessarily do all of it yourself, but you are going to have somebody else in another city, state, that's going to use their money to build out that franchise system itself. And you'll be getting a portion of what they have, your royalties on that. So you'll charge them an initial franchise fee. Generally speaking, most of them around $50,000 for a one-time fee. But your annuity is going to be that 5 to 10% royalty that you're going to charge them for that. Now, that has some benefits. So a lot of the businesses are more popular because you have a local owner operator of that business. So each one of your businesses is now locally owned and operated as opposed to corporate owned and operated on that. So I would say from the standpoint of the two benefits on that, you are not spending your money to build out each one of those locations. So you can grow faster, but you're not getting all your money from each one of those locations on that too. So kind of a give and take there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, that sounds so appealing. I know when we first opened our first 3 locations, and once we got to the 3rd location, we were way in over our heads. I mean, running and operating all of those locations, and it's a hard act to balance. And when you're investing all of your own money, and it starts to get scary the more and more locations you have. So, the idea of being able to grow but not having to manage it all is very appealing, I think, as a business owner.
That's a big challenge when you're going out there, especially when you start, if you're expanding in your local area, that's somewhat okay. You still got a lot to do. But once you start expanding out into other states, other cities, now, yeah, you're right, Joanne. How are you going to go out there and handle all that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's only so much you can grow, I think, as one person. So franchising, I think, makes sense in that way. Awesome. So for those out there that own a brick and mortar business, they've got 1 or 2 locations themselves. How do they know if their business is a good fit to franchise? How do they know, make that decision when is the time right for them?
What we like to look at, Joanne, is the appeal to other people on that one. So if you want your business to be appealing to other people, generally speaking, if you're bringing in a net income of $100,000 or more, that's pretty appealing to other people on that one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them start out with one franchise, and or one location. You can do that. But what makes it even more appealing is if you have more than one location. So
Mm-hmm.
you've already proven that you can reproduce it. So I would say those are the 2 main things to do that. Now, not all the brick and mortar franchises I work with are bringing in 100,000 or more, and they still sell just fine on that. They're just really simple to operate. So it's very simple to do it. Some of the hair salons, for instance, some of those don't necessarily bring in 100,000 location, but you are not operating them. You've got a manager running them on that. So you don't do much of anything. But the 2 main things that we would probably look at is are you bringing in 100,000 net or more, so it makes it more appealing when people look at it, and have you reproduced it on there? So you don't have to do both those things. It just makes it a little bit more appealing to when I bring people to you to grow that franchise system.
That makes sense. Complete sense. Is there a certain number of years that people look for you to be in business to kind of prove out that model, or do you find it's flexible there?
Still flexible there. Again, it comes to the appeal on that. If you've done 3 years into it, you probably overcome most of the hurdles. 5 years, probably even better, but you don't have to be that long. But just so you've overcome some of those hurdles already on that, and you've got a good plan of action, you've got a good operating system, you've got the good procedures and policies, manuals in there, so that people can just reproduce it. So because you're going to bring somebody in, you're going to bring them to your office, you're going to teach them how to do it, and then you're going to send them home and they're going to do it. So they really need to have that step-by-step plan of action. You don't want them wondering, what do I do next on that? Never. Not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was, I was telling Greg before we started this call that, the franchise we started out with, we didn't feel we got a lot of support. And I think that was the one thing that was missing is we didn't always know what move to make next, and we weren't getting a lot of support there. So I think that is so important as a franchisor, if you're going to franchise your business, to be able to support your potential franchisees in that way, right?
Yeah, support systems are essential. That's one of the things that my people are always looking at is what kind of support does the franchisor provide? I mean, some of the main things that you need to look at when you're a brick and mortar franchise is getting a real estate team together, because the people that you're going to bring in aren't necessarily real estate people. They don't know how to negotiate a lease necessarily, and what to look for in negotiating the lease. So you want those systems in place so that the franchisees you bring in, you're going to tell them, you're going to give them 3 different locations, basically. That's what a lot of my brick and mortar does. They go out there, check all the traffic patterns, see what's going on, depending on, what brick and mortar business you have, obviously. On that. But they'll get the real estate team together, find your locations, do the lease negotiations, and then you as the franchisor need to have that build out plan. So your franchisee, the only thing they're doing is writing the check.
Yeah.
And you've already got people that are going to do the build out. You've got that plan of how the building should look and what location it should be in. And then if you're doing lease negotiations, a lot of my people don't know if you're going into a strip mall, well, in that lease, they better say there's no other business like yours that can go into that strip mall at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is one thing that the franchise we were in did not help with. And it really didn't, in the long run, it didn't benefit them. I mean, there was a lot of franchises that came in and they were kind of letting them go anywhere and any location. And those locations weren't doing very well, as you could imagine, because they were choosing, the wrong locations with no traffic, cheap rent, all of those scenarios. So, yeah, I can see, having that team in place would be a win-win for both, you as the franchisee, but also as the franchisor. You want to make sure they're in a good spot and they're going to be successful.
Absolutely, because that's how you grow your business, is making those franchisees successful. You want as much royalties as you can get. The only way to get as much royalties as you can get is to make those franchisees as successful as they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So Greg, talk to me about what does it take to franchise your business? I mean, when I think about potentially franchising our model, I get a little overwhelmed about thinking about all these things. So can you walk me through what are all the steps typically when you do want to franchise your business?
Actually, Joanna, it's not that challenging and not that difficult, because you don't want to do that yourself. Just as if you buy in a franchise because you don't want to go through everything yourself, you want a team of people that are going to help you do that. So you're going to find there's a couple of different people out there, different groups that we have that will franchise the business for you on that one. So what you're going to be looking at then is somebody that's going to put together or go over, see your policies and procedures manual. If you don't have one, they're going to put something like that in place. Now you're going to be thinking about, as well as, what kind of territory are you looking at for that? So in a brick and mortar model, most of our brick and mortar models are going to be looking at an area, physical area radius. Our services industry look at populations and that sort of thing. But if you're a brick and mortar, depending on what you're offering, people aren't going to drive necessarily too terribly far to get you. So you're looking at, what kind of a territory am I going to give to these people? How much distance do I need between my franchisees on that one? So we need to look at that. So you can put the policies and procedures manual together. You're going to look at the territory map that you're going to have out there. Then you're going to be looking at who's going to be doing the build outs in each one of these locations on there. So you can be looking at, what kind of a team of people do you need? Who are your construction people that are going to do that? Who's your real estate team that's going to do that? Putting that together as well. And then the most important thing is you putting all that together. You created that franchise, and the team of people that I have will put together that franchise disclosure document for you on that one. So you don't really need to think about all these things. These are things that are going to come up, but you're going to be deciding on where are you going to offer your franchise at. So we have our non-registration states, which are very simple to get into. Once you create that franchise disclosure document, the team does for you. You can go automatically into the non-registration states right away. Registration states require a little bit more paperwork and money to get into on that one. But the one thing that you're going to be thinking about is the end goal of once you become a franchise, then is you've got to train these franchisees.
Yeah.
So where are you going to train them at? So
Yeah.
in addition to that, you've got to have, so I bring you a franchise, a potential franchisee, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Then what you're going to do is you're going to need to have that process in place to walk them through what your franchise is all about.
Yeah.
So you can have the PowerPoints, you can have the information set up. And this is where a franchise development team will help you with that. These are the things that you'll be thinking about. Because when I send them over to you, it's going to be about a 2-month process as we work together with these potential franchisees to show them how your business model works. So you're going to have that. You're going to have somebody doing that. So that's one thing to think about is, are you going to do this yourself as well as run your franchise? Or are you going to have hire a franchise development person to take them through the process? You may be able to do it when you begin with, because you're not going to have a lot of potential franchisees. So you can do that. But as you grow, these are the things you need to think about of bringing these people in. And then once you brought them in, is that you need some place to train them and do that as well. So those are a few things to think about. And then one thing that my franchisors tell me when they come to the meeting and they tell us about their franchise is who they are looking for. So picture in your mind, who is the franchise person that you're looking for. Take that McDonald's movie, for instance, that we had with Ray Kroc. If you ever watch that, any of you out there have ever watch that one, The Founder, I believe it is. You notice that when he first started out, he started selling that franchise to almost anybody. And then when he went around to those locations, he found they weren't operating the way he wanted to. So he determined that the husband and wife teams were the ideal franchisees for him. So that's something to think about as you're going through that. Get together. If you have a team of people, brainstorm that and get together. Who is your ideal franchisee? So if I bring somebody to you, first of all, you want to let me know what type of person I need to be looking for to help you grow your business. But who are you specifically looking for, so that you know when you get them on the phone that they're the right person? Because it's a mutual thing. When you're taking these people through the process of investigating your franchise, you may not like them. You may like them. They may like you. They may not like you. But you gotta determine what it is that you're looking for to like them. Kind of a long-winded answer there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. It's kind of like dating, and but yeah, I mean, my business, I think, is my baby. So when I think about, somebody else with my brand name and out there representing me, like, I want to make sure it's the right person, right? And they're gonna do it justice.
That's exactly right. It is your baby. It is something that you've been growing up. This is your favorite thing. So you want, and this is people that, your agreement's going to be 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So you are privileged and honored to have them with you for 5 or 10 years, or you're stuck with them for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big gap. That's not a short investment there. So that's great. Yeah, that's, I think, a side of it that I haven't even thought about. It's more just like, okay, how do you sell this thing? But how do you sell this thing to the right people too? I love it. So when you've seen businesses, you've obviously worked with a ton of them, you've seen a lot of franchises. What are the most common mistakes that you see when businesses franchise?
Growing too quickly. You don't want to necessarily grow too quickly. So one of the things that I look for when I'm looking at franchises, especially newer ones, is the number of franchises sold to the number of franchises open. It's always a red flag if they've got, 10 franchises open and 100 franchises sold. That's bad. So think about your growth rate. Think about what's a sustainable growth rate for you. So you want to be opening them up as quickly as they're coming in on that one. So growth rate. So consider your team. What are you going to need? When you have 5 franchises, who are you going to need to help support? Who's your team going to be? How many people are you going to need to that? When you have 100 franchises open, what is your team going to look like on that as well? Another thing to consider is how are you going to sell your franchise specifically as with territories. So with franchises, a lot of my people will start out with one, but there are still a number of them that maybe want to start out with more than one territory size. So you as a franchisor can decide how you want to do that. Do you want to So what we call an area developer franchise, where you give people the right to develop entire franchise territories. Say like here in Missouri, you probably only have 3 because it's not a whole lot of big cities here. So you sell 3 or you sell 5, but it's going to take a while to open those up on there. So you're going to have a development plan to open them. So if you sell somebody 5 territories, it may open 1 the first year, 2 the second year, 3 the third year. Do you want to do that? Because now you've got a 2 or 3 year wait period.
Yeah.
And that territory sits with nothing happening on it. And if you get too much of it, because I've seen franchises where they'll sell 10 territories at a time. People love them. Franchisors really, wants to go out there and sell them. But now you've got 10 territories that are sitting there, or 8 or 9 because they've opened 1 or 2, but you've got them sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
So as you're doing that.
Yeah, that's so insightful. That's a great point. I think that I can see a new franchisor not really taking that into consideration, just being so eager to sell. Okay, yeah, we're selling them. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, none of them are opening. So yeah, that's tough for sure. What else? Any other kind of big mishaps or things to avoid when franchising your business?
I would say those are probably some of the biggest things I see, is that they're getting really infatuated with the fact that you've got a lot of money coming in from selling all those franchises, and you just want to sell as many as possible to that.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest things that we see, and one of the biggest issues is that people not getting those franchises open on a regular basis on there, and not knowing the right type of person that you want for a franchisee. I'd say there's one thing that we didn't discuss so far on that one, is do you want your franchisees to operate your business full-time? Do you want their undivided attention on that? Or are you okay with them getting a manager and having a manager run model? So that's your full-time versus semi-absentee. I've got franchises in every industry that do it both ways. But that's a good point for you to, as a potential franchisor, to consider, is how you want them to run it. It's entirely up to you. You'll find people either way. And I've got franchisors that'll say, no, they've got to be owner operator. We want them in there. Once they get it up and running 2 or 3 years down the road, hey, as long as it's running great, you can have a manager run it. But to begin with, we want your undivided attention to get this franchise going.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Like the locations, when we started at a franchise, we, had some locations in our, region close to us that were operated by a manager, and the, customer experience that people got there were completely different than the ones with an owner. So it is something, worth considering for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're that owner in there, boy. That's and you're doing it, boy. That's your money right there. So when you're right there with the clients and you owning that, people come in and they see you. That's an added plus. Well, that's the owner, right? That's the owner right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what it is about small businesses, but people come in and they love talking to the owner, like, oh, you're the owner. It's like a totally different story to them. So it does. It can definitely play a big role for sure. So I think one of the biggest questions when, some of our students have reached out and said, hey, I'm considering franchising my business. They want to know where to get started, how to get started. What do you recommend, Greg? Where should people start that want to franchise their business?
Well, I'd prefer if they give me a call on the phone. Always a good start. There are many franchise consultants out there. Of course, I'd rather you come to me. I can help you out. But there's also many different franchise companies that will do turning your business into a franchise. So I've had 2 or 3, I think, businesses that I've helped turn into franchises. So I've got a few different contacts on who are some of the better franchise development people out there on that one. So if you need information on those and you want to get in contact with them, just contact me and I'll put you in touch with those. It's also good to have an advisor. And it's very confusing out there, how to do the whole thing and how to do it. And you're investing a lot of money, generally around $50,000 that you're looking at to become a franchise. So it's good to have an advisor, somebody who's done that before. Again, prefer it's me, but there are other franchise consultants out there.
Yeah.
Make certain that they've had a lot of experience doing it and they know what they're talking about. Interview a few if that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of franchise consultants I've noticed. So what do you think people should look for, or what do you offer, Greg, that compared to some of these others, and how should they know who to work with?
I've worked with franchises before. Worked with a master franchisor before when I did my Taco Bell stint right out of high school. So I've worked with those. I've had my own franchise, ran that for a while as well. Got my Wall Street Journal book on that. And I really, hey, thanks. I appreciate that. And I really sit down and really give you some something to think about, some thoughtful insight to it. I am not here to sell you on the fact that franchising is the greatest thing since sliced bread. For some, it is not the greatest thing. We will find that out along the way. I'm here as your advisor to help unconfuse you, help get that confusion that you have and really get you focused and thinking about what it is that you really want to get out of that franchise. And that's some of what we talked about on our first call. What is it you're trying to get out of that franchise? If you're trying to get something out of that franchise that ain't possible, I'm going to tell you right away.
Yeah.
But I'm just here to advise. I'm not here to sell you on anything. I'm here to be your guide and to save you a lot of time. And I've saved people money on getting a franchise as well. So I have many advisors, funding advisors, CPAs, franchise attorneys on that. Oh, and the best part, I'm free. So I don't charge anything for my services. I don't even charge anything for my book. If you want a PDF copy, I give you that. If you want a hard copy, I send you that. But my services are free. But disclaimer there, all franchise consultant services are free. Franchisors pay us a referral fee if you decide to invest in one of the franchises we introduce you to, or if you go with one of the franchise development people we introduce you to, they also pay us a referral fee. But I will give you several options on everybody so you can pick and choose, and we'll discuss how you feel about them and if we're on the right track.
I love it. That's awesome. So Greg, you can help people if they want to invest in a franchise and if they want to franchise their business, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Awesome. So I know some of you out there aren't open yet. You don't know what kind of business you want to open. Greg would be a great person to chat with to see, is franchise the right way to go? Maybe you don't want to have to come up with your idea and products and services and just take on a model that's already out there. I think Greg would be the perfect person to talk to there.
Very kind of you, Joanne. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Greg, how can people reach you? I know there's a LinkedIn profile that I'm going to link in the show notes here. Should people just reach out to you there?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, franchisemaven.com, which is franchise, M-A-V as in Victor, E-N.com. Greg at franchisemaven.com. I'll get that out. Or simply pick up the phone and give me a call. 361-772-6401.
Perfect. And I'll make sure all that contact info are in the notes of this episode. Greg, thank you for your time today. I learned a lot, got my head spinning on potentially franchising, and I know our listeners are going to love this one as well.
Cool. Thank you for having me, Joanna. It's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Receipt Paper Podcast, your go-to source of information for starting and growing a successful brick-and-mortar business. Subscribe to hear future episodes and share this content so that more people can access these valuable insights. If you're looking for more resources to help you with your brick-and-mortar business, visit masterbrickandmortar.com or follow us on Instagram at masterbrickandmortar. Thanks again for listening to the Receipt Paper Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.